Hello and welcome to the Stacking to Win It NFL podcast for Week 15. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about some top stacks for you, courtesy of at Zach Scott Moxie. Starting off with the hottest offense on the planet, or at least the hottest quarterback on the planet, and that's Russell Wilson and the Seahawks facing off against the Browns. Vegas team total of 28.75 here, and they are going to be popular, as Zach mentions here. Doug Baldwin, Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett. All of those guys have been fairly high-owned plays for the last couple weeks anyway. All of them were very high-owned in last night's Thursday contest as well. Second highest point total on the board at nearly 29, 14.5-point home favorites. The defense is also in play here. Obviously, the Seattle defense over the past couple years has been one of the best in football. Kind of struggled at the beginning of the season. Now definitely back to looking how they used to look as a very good defense, one of the better units in the league. And as you look at this game, yes, they are huge favorites. Russell Wilson, 17 total touchdowns, 0 turnovers in the past 4 games. 31.74 fantasy points per game, not less than 25 in any of those. And this is a situation where obviously Marshawn Lynch is gone. You've got Jimmy Graham gone as well. Now Thomas Rawls had stepped in. Now Thomas Rawls broke his ankle. Now he's out for the season. So not much of a running game. Going to be running back by committee. And we've seen with Russell Wilson before, when that's the case, he just throws the ball down the field and makes plays with his legs, does everything he needs to do, and he's looked absolutely incredible over the past couple weeks. So get yourself some shares of the Seahawks against the Browns, Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, and or Tyler Lockett, whatever your preference may be, and certainly throw in some Seattle defense there as well. Next stack, the Cardinals against the Eagles, 27-point team total here, and the Cardinals have been one of the better offenses in the league. Carson Palmer been one of the more consistent quarterbacks this season, throwing for at least 300 yards in 5 of his last 6, at least 2 touchdown passes in 6 of 7. He's gone for at least 20 fantasy points those 5 games where he threw for 300, and gets a great matchup against an Eagles defense that is allowing the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks at just over 21, and been awful over the past 3 weeks, allowing almost 27 fantasy points a game. Also allowed the second most touchdown passes and 14 over the last 4 games. So, this is definitely a great spot for you to get some exposure. Carson Palmer, David Johnson, Michael Floyd. You can even throw in Fitzgerald, John Brown. Lots of weapons on this offense. David Johnson probably going to be the most popular of any of these plays by quite a bit, but you can certainly throw in these guys there as well. We've seen David Johnson get some plays out of the backfield as well, so stacking him with Palmer, not a terrible idea there either. Next up, a value play, the Lions. What's most important here is you see at Saints. Anyone facing the Saints, obviously, this season has gotten themselves a nice bump. This defense, outside of Tampa Bay last week, that was awful. But this is a Lions team that does have weapons. We've seen Golden Tate, Calvin Johnson, both have decent seasons. Golden Tate actually getting more looks and more targets recently. But Megatron is the top option. Has been is listed as questionable right now, but going to see some Brandon Browner in this game. And this is a great spot for him. Since that Thanksgiving game, hasn't seen a whole lot of production. Struggling with an ankle injury, but Stafford, Johnson, and Tate all in play here against this Saints defense that's just god-awful. Next up, contrarian stack, and that's the Broncos against the Steelers. Nobody wants to talk about them. Zach's throwing them out there. And Brock Osweiler's been throwing the ball a ton. Past 4 games, he's thrown over 250 yards in 3 of them. Last week, threw for over 300. He has not had more than 2 touchdowns in a game yet. But Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, a huge game for both teams. Could take a big hit on the Steelers' end if they lose this game towards their playoff hopes. Denver trying to get in that number 2 seed or even the 1 seed, fighting with the Bengals and Patriots there. So this game is huge for purposes of for the playoff picture for both sides and really for other teams as well. Patriots and Bengals certainly watching this one, and the Chiefs as well watching this one with great interest. But looking at what these guys have done this season, Thomas with 88 for 1,067 yards. Sanders is 57 for 788. Struggled the last 2 weeks, but no one's going to be on them. A lot of people are playing the Steelers as a GPP defense as well. And Steelers are a very bad pass defense. Allow the second most pass yards per game at 279, 7th most per attempt, and allowed 4 of the last 5 teams they faced to throw for over 300 yards. We saw A.J. McCarron step in for Andy Dalton last week and throw almost 300 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Did have a couple picks, but still, this is a very susceptible defense. So I think that's a very under-the-radar fun stack to throw in this couple of GPPs. All right, that's going to wrap things up here for us for this week. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.